No, but let's move on to our next series of the day, and it's going to be tom60229 versus FroStee, and this is going to be a pretty cool one for me because Tom, again, we've just been saying just how consistent and how impressive he's looked. He's currently undefeated in Grandmasters Season 2 as the only player. Yep. But FroStee also, I think, has been putting the work in, been playing pretty well, seems confident. So I think this is going to be one of those matchups that might decide their future as well, because if FroStee beats Tom, the way tiebreakers work, in the future, a bit down the line, is that the stronger the people you beat were, the higher your tiebreaker is. That's right. Effectively, their scores get added up as a hidden score for you in terms of tiebreaker. So if Tom's already 3-0, FroStee gets a win, that should only work wonders for his tiebreaker later on.
Yeah, and I think FroStee could be in with a good spot. He's a bit of an outlier in the Asia-Pacific region, at least in terms of the styles of decks he goes for. Because, obviously the reason why Asia-Pacific is a little bit more distant from the other two regions is in no small part language barrier for a lot of the players. They're not communicating in the practice partners with a lot of the European and American practice groups. FroStee obviously does not have that language barrier quite so much. So he seems to have gone with a lot of the thinking of the European players, which is that Quest Charmer is being brought a lot in the other two regions, not quite so much in Asia Pacific, but he's got it here, and I think it could be a pretty big boon in his game plan up against Tom.
Yeah, also as well in the Americas region, Zele, I think, has been almost exclusively streaming Quest Shaman, making multiple different builds and really pushing that archetype. And for me, it's a weird deck, and I can't find the list I like.
I think
because
that's what a lot of
every
people
time I
struggle
play it, I'm like, I wish I played this instead, or I wish I had that. And I'm not even saying that on a matchup by matchup basis. It's just every time I have a play session, so over say 10 games, whatever, I always think, oh, Earthquake's a really good card, and not many people play it. And then I put Earthquake in, and I'm like, oh, this other card's good. Should I just build Control Shaman? But then what about the quest? It's just, I feel like it's almost like a constant cycle with this, because there's so many ways you can build it and so many good cards. Basically, any Battlecry card you need to have to at least consider in this deck because of the double Battlecry effect, and I can never decide how to build it, and whenever I play it, I just get frustrated.
Shaman in general is just such a delight to play for me at the moment, like the aggro version, the token version, the quest version. I've even been playing Big Shaman, giving that a go with the blatant decoy that you have thrown in there.
Oh yeah.
And obviously you've got all the classic stuff with Muck Morpher and Eureka as well, pulling out those big minions, and honestly, I don't think it's that bad. Like, I was winning games at the top of Legend with that deck, or for a cast release. I count top 500 as the top.
Mark this day. We're talking about how good Quest Paladin and Big Shaman are. This is the world we live in right now. But FroStee is going to shield his Paladin this time and have his Druid banned out. And then Tom is going to shield his Druid and have his Warrior banned out. So, okay. Very, very interesting overall. A shield with FroStee's Murloc Paladin. He needs to do me proud here and win this game, so I can at least pretend that my prediction was based in APAC alone.
Yeah, this prediction for FroStee, I think, hinges pretty securely around the idea that Warrior would not be shielded by Tom, because he wants to get rid of that and then get his aggro decks going up against what the non-Warrior decks, so that his aggro decks like Murloc Paladin can kind of stomp over what Tom is going for.
Yeah, and sorry to half cut you off. Visually, at least. But this is where I start to, again, we're kind of hitting this thing where Warrior's probably going to be left open for FroStee to ban or not. It's not going to be shielded, because Warrior versus the Quest Shaman doesn't feel that great. Warrior Mirror is a Warrior Mirror. I don't think anyone really wants to play mirror matches. And then also the Druid, not good. So then, if you just know you can get the ban on the Warrior, and the rest of the lineup you're confident with one, say Paladin, because Warrior should dumpster the Paladin. Does that then get you a good, another free win, so to speak? And this might just be the way to go going forward. Is just take one deck that your opponent
has only one
has to deal with, and then they cannot leave it up because your other decks cover the rest. So it just gets a very sort of puzzle-like effect. But I think we are just starting to dig into maybe what is the correct way, or at least the beginnings of the correct way to play the format.
It's true, but then if you take it a step further, with this first game being Tom's Druid up against FroStee's Warrior, if the Druid wins, it can't be played again. Druid against Paladin is the matchup that FroStee's trying to hit. He wants to just get that free win out of the way with Murloc Paladin against the Druid. So if FroStee loses here, which I'd say he is likely to up against this Druid, could be a rough spot for him.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I would guess, or would have guessed, with this strategy, you'd pick your sniper deck first, so the Paladin in this aspect, because it's just more likely you'll hit a better matchup. And I know there's all the mind games.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily true game one.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'd just queue it because if your strategy's revolved around getting a win with this deck, do you just chuck it out there? I don't know, but if Druid gets the win, we'll see what happens.
Either way, jumping right into the game here, Tom already thrown out his coin. Is it looks like we have...
This place is scary.
Perhaps a slight spectator bug. I don't know exactly what's going on there. But either way, FroStee's starting off with a pretty reasonable curve. This feels like a little bit more the way that Warrior can win this matchup by just curving out nicely. And again, it's not the dream curve, of course. And he's not playing Bomb Warrior, so it's not ideal. But it's still a pretty decent way to get the ball rolling and at least not fall too far behind at the start.
B is never a bad pickup. Means it's just it's effectively a swipe you can play on turn 4 in this deck, right? I say swipe.
No.
I mean
it's B's that you can play on turn 4.
It deals 4 damage. It's a high damage removal.
Right,
Is I guess the point I was aiming. I was trying to make it relevant for Druid. It didn't work. But it's like a high damage removal tool that is more playable on turn 4. Yeah. But now again, just a general rule for playing against Druid is, Quest Druid at least, is that you do have to take advantage. Like, you know they're going to have slow turns 1 to 5, so take advantage. Just get stuff on the board, because Druid also has never really been able to deal with a wide board that well. So just play stuff, no matter what deck you're playing. I think just get stuff on the board and play aggressively.
Really interesting turn. Sorry, now for FroStee with the Ziliax here, because we could see just a straight up magnetized on Ziliax, which if the 1/1s weren't there would be the absolute dream, because it pretty much shuts out Oasis Surger. It's still good with the 1/1s there because it goes up to effectively 8 health, which means that the 2 1/1s and an Oasis Surger wouldn't be able to take it out. And you know, the Faceless Lurker, that's what it's called. Being at 6 health is not ideal because obviously a 1/1 and an Oasis Surger can take it out, and then the other one can take out the Omega Devastator.
Oh.
Yeah, this was a very nice pickup.
Flunkies forever.
Do you just keep going?
What if you Hecklebot?
I think I like keep going Flunky.
I'm just thinking, is Hecklebot just good in Druid? Against Druid? It's all their combos, right?
Yeah, I guess so. It would be pretty good. It would be pretty good. But I think against Tom's list specifically, he's not running King Feoris or Malagos.
Oh,
or
right,
like
he's
that.
not running King as well. Okay, I think if there was King there, because you'd have chances at Loti, Floop, Elise, King, Nomi, Cineris.
Yeah.
There's so many minions to hit.
Still definitely interesting to consider. As, man, oh man, FroStee's hand is just praying for an Armageddillo.
Still though, FroStee is keeping up, and if not keeping up, actually getting ahead, which...
This play has worked
It's
out
a big deal.
so much better
Yeah.
than Ziliax would have done. Like, leagues ahead.
Help that you got Flunky, of course.
It did.
It's doable. So now I think the Faceless might be good. It's kind of hard to do 6. Obviously the buffed, the Fluke version of Oasis is a bit stickier.
Yeah.
So that can help. But I like this. Then just curve is what
Me
FroStee wants
too.
to do. Keep playing stuff. You don't get punished for a wide board. I wouldn't even say Starfall is a punishing warrior for a wide board, because most of your minions aren't 2 health, so they don't die. You know.
Yes, that sure is unpleasant to look at, that hand, isn't it? All those effects going off.
Power takes metal.
Especially when it's becoming a slideshow as well. I think this makes sense though for Tom. I like holding on to the flute. Like, it always seems greedy when players do it against Warrior, but I think it's surprisingly necessary.
The amount of times I've heard you say Floop the Surger, and then the one time that it to me seemed reasonable, you were like, no, you don't Floop it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I feel like you always want to Floop a Surger. Which is, I'm getting
Really?
stuck. Yeah. Oh, I'm actually stuck in my chair. This is the problem.
What?
Where is
You
this
actually
wire?
got your cable around your chair.
I'm literally
Spin it around,
stuck.
spin it around.
This way?
Yeah. Oh wait, it's caught around the bottom.
There we go.
There you go.
Now I've lost some audio because of this, so I have to try and... There we go. Is your audio okay?
Yes, it's fine.
So is mine now. I fixed it. Woo! I nearly broke my whole headset, and Derek would have had to solo cast, and we know nobody wants that.
Yeah, least of all me. Trust me.
I really like this if he heals the minion.
Straight back in, ready to cast.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good to go. I love. Don't drop the ball. It just got a problem where I could not move. I literally got wrapped around my chair, so I couldn't move to fix the problem.
God, why didn't I take a video of that? That would have been hilarious.
The worst part is I'm pretty sure they're recording this, whether we're on camera or not. So.
Yeah, that can go in some highlights. That'll be in the Hearthies right at the end.
Yeah.
I think I can agree though that Tom is doing a very good job of doing the two things that I want to do. Number one, constant pressure. Number two, save the flute.
Look at new charity. Just save the flute.
Save the flute.
Call.
For just 50 cents a day.
The flute has to walk 2 miles to become an Oasis surgeon.
Just to get gloop.
Ooh. Once the deck gets going, it's filthy, isn't it?
When it does
Once
stuff
you just
like this,
stick a couple of minions, the minions all hit for 1 million. And now FroStee's just dead.
Oh!
Never mind, I lied. He's less dead than I thought.
This has been, I've got to be honest, pretty close to the dream hand for FroStee as well. Like, his curve wasn't insane at the start, but when he hit turn 5 and was playing out all those flunkies, that got pretty crazy. So he had the early pressure. Now he's got the brawl to hopefully, fingers crossed, keep him in the game.
The problem is, if he doesn't exactly win, and maybe the Crystal Merchant dies and something else lives, he could still just be dead.
I mean, it's not that bad. He can just magnetize Ziliax onto one of his guys, one of the 1/1s.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even look at Ziliax. Apologies, yeah. Ziliax makes this better. If he didn't have it, it could get a bit dicey.
You didn't want to see that surviving. Definitely didn't want to see that.
Still goes for it, I think. I think he has to.
Wow. Baby Grizzly.
He's nearly dead.
He is very nearly
Wait,
dead.
is he dead?
Well, what
What's
burst
the far
damage
left?
does Tom have?
Well, he has another
That's just
Scenarios.
Ferocious Howl. The Scenarios is 7. So, yeah, at the moment it's not quite.
He could Wrath into Swipe.
Yes, he could
It's
whirl
not
the
quite
Expedition
there.
into Mark of Nature. Is that what it's called? 3 mana +4/+4 into 1.
I'm kind of surprised he's not gone for anything like that, actually. At least cast it.
At least cast 1. Oh, he's going with Nourish instead.
Oh, okay.
And this makes sense because he had to do it this way round to not overdraw cards. So it's not a draw last ball.
I was just meaning just to play a 1-mana choose one
Yeah,
that
yeah,
might actually win you the game that turn.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have had the mana to do this. And I think this is fine. It still puts pressure on the board. And it's drawing him closer and closer to Nomi. And also to lethal with swipes.
Yeah.
I like this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, FroStee's got to worry about the board. And then we worry
yes.
for FroStee because there's double swipe in hand.
This could turn around though. Like if he plays the Omega Assembly and hits Devastator, he's not in a great spot, but an okay spot.
I don't think he can. Because if he doesn't hit it, he's just...
Yes. Well, he could go for the 2 Morden then, I suppose, if he misses it. Or Ziliax,
I think
plus Weapons
I think
Project.
because he has to play Ziliax this turn, I think he has to play that Because he's so low, and he will know. FroStee knows there's 2 swipes in the deck, and he knows that Tom is drawing like a madman right now. So I think this is a forced play, even though it's obviously not clean.
A lot of damage that can still come through. Wrath double swipe is lethal.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It is. It's gonna be game 1, going to Tom.
Lightning fast game from the Druid. Expected up against the Warrior. The more I'm seeing this, the more I'm realizing that this isn't even Druid's final form. This isn't even all his power we're seeing because it hasn't even come down, it feels like, to the Nomis yet and the King Feyorsis. It's just mid-game pressure that the Warrior cannot stand up against.
And the real question as Tom takes the win there, of course, for me, is there are a few different Druid builds. And my question is not the one, which one beats Warrior, because I feel like all of them. My question is, which one is the best versus the other stuff? Because that's the one that's going to be the best one.
Yeah.
Is it Mali? Is it, Nomi? Because if you have to start beating aggro, what does Nomi do? Like a whole load of nothing?
Yeah.
So maybe the build evolves a little bit. And also, can people keep bringing Control Warrior if it's just going to get farmed? Because if people just protect Druid, you just can't play Warrior. Or at least Warrior has such a bad matchup that it could just be an auto loss. But anyway, we can talk more about the lineups and what's going on after a quick break. We'll be right back.
Welcome, recruits. I'm Alec Dawson, and today I'm here to teach you what it takes to be part of the League of Explorers. We need all the help we can get, because it's time to save Old Doom. First things first. Being an explorer can be dangerous. The League of Evil has already stolen Dalaran, but now they're unleashing plagues in Old Doom, and they keep shuffling bombs into our decks. Luckily, Old Doom is stocked with ancient treasures that may give us a chance. We've already sent some of our best explorers to retrieve these powerful artifacts, but we need you to go out into the field too. Here's your quest: raid the Sky Temple. That may seem like a lot of spells, but you'll get there faster than you think. Once we complete our quest, we'll get the hero power Ascendant Scroll, which adds a mage spell to our hand and reduces the cost by 2. Ascendant Scroll allows us to load up on cheap spells for cards like Archmage and Tinnitus. Because if there's a way to defeat evil, it's fireballs to the face. Make no mistake though, the League of Evil has been leveling up too. Evil was powerful in Dalaran, but now they discovered something even more nefarious: teamwork. Here's Weaponized Wasp, one of Hagatha's new secret weapons. The laser on its head, courtesy of Blastmaster Boo. Weaponized Wasp plays well in aggressive lackey decks that look to take board control early. In Saviors of Old Doom, expect to see lackey build-arounds in Shaman and Warlock. But don't worry, we also have a secret weapon. Bees! No, really, one of our junior explorers found a bee-controlling device deep in Kartut's tomb. It took us a few days to decipher the instructions, but it's quite the powerful tool. Here they come now, it's bees! A new druid spell. This efficient removal spell excels in token-based druid decks. Need some extra pings for Knife Juggler? Bees! Need some extra bodies for Soul of the Forest? Bees! Need anything at all? Bees! All right. That's all we have for today, Explorer. We've got one more training session to go before you'll be ready for the dangers of the desert. So sit tight, and I'll see you out there in Saviors of Old Doom.
We are back with FroStee versus Tom, and it's looking pretty good for Tom so far. He took a win with the Druid deck in a very convincing fashion in what I feel like is, again, just another of the more one-sided matchups. And my question now, Derek, is if Druid's a one-sided matchup for Control Warrior and Quest Paladin's a one-sided matchup for Control Warrior, is Control Warrior's time nearly at an end?
It's possible. I'm not sure. Against the Druid, it's a weird matchup. I'm kind of happy to see it losing because Quest Druid is exactly the kind of deck Warrior should be losing to.
Yes,
it's a strong mid-range deck.
Yes,
exactly,
yeah.
which control decks should suffer against, which Dr. Boom has kind of been reversing for quite a long time. So it's glad to see that go back the way it should. But I agree, if more players are going towards the Quest Paladin, maybe more players start bringing Reno Mage again, as we saw Yala bringing in the European region this week, we could see the exiting of Control Warrior. But at the same time, the effect that it has is not necessarily just in games. It also warps everything outside of games, because a lot of decks are just being pushed down because of the presence of Control Warrior. So decks like Aggro Rogue are not seeing quite so much play. All the aggressive decks, Zoo even, I imagine, is seeing less representation than players would like because of the dominance of Warrior. So maybe it's there just to keep your opponent from going crazy with these aggro decks, because if you don't bring Control Warrior and your opponent does go for a full aggro lineup, you could be suffering.
Yeah, that's true, but let's get into game number 2. See what happens here. Tom currently 3-0 in Season 2 of Grandmasters here. FroStee 2-1. Both players, of course, would love a win here. And it's going to be Hunter versus the Warrior again for FroStee. And Tom, keeping hold of that Hunter's pack.
Yeah, just wants to go for a little bit of early value rather than pressure, which definitely speaks to his thinking in the game plan, which is that the aggro side of the deck, with obviously Secret Keeper, the Sunreaver Spy, the Masked Contender, all that goodness, is not good enough to beat Warrior. And generally, I would agree with him that is not quite strong enough the majority of the time to beat Warrior. So I don't hate him going for a slightly slower value line of play, especially given the construction of the deck.
Yeah, I think it's fine overall. Tom, as you can see, does have the high main. He has like basically last week's build of the Hunter. Very similar, if not identical to Staz's build. And I think I like it overall. FroStee working out whether he wants to weapons project now to kill a 1-1. Or whether he wants to save it for one of those bows. Oh, sorry, the bow that's in the deck.
Yeah, I think it's very reasonable to just hold on to it for a little bit longer, especially as it's not just the bow, it's also the Hunter's Pack, which generates weapons, of course. So I think it's reasonable to expect he'll get a better use out of it later on, especially as Mummy next turn should be able to take out pretty much any threats that come down. You're laughing at just me calling it Mummy?
Yeah, it's just a weird thing to name.
It does
a card,
make me sound
doesn't it?
horrendously posh, doesn't it?
Yes.
Mummy will do it.
You know what it's? Have you seen Shrek?
Yes, I've seen Shrek.
Basically, Prince Charming.
Mummy.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
With your accent as well, it's very similar.
Yes.
That's all I think.
I know that's all you think.
Wow.
This place is scary.
This place is scary. But Bone Wraith again just looks good.
Yeah, I wonder if there's ever any reason for Goldshire Footman just to smooth out the curve, because it does mean like 5-drop, 5-drop, 1-drop on turns 5 and 6 respectively.
Does
but
it ever do anything though?
I think the Bone Wraith should smooth out the curve well enough anyway. Yeah.
And I don't think, especially versus Hunter, there's so many little ways and they have little minions to deal with it. I don't think it ever really does enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless it's the one shining light that stands between you and a King Crush / Bran. That'll be sick. Into turn 7. Goldshire Footman pass. No!
Ready for action. And then you'll find him where the action's at. The perfect combo. Whoa. That is a sick Hunter's Pack.
Again.
Every
Does
time.
Hunter's Pack just have a high main in it? It's like high main Eagle Humbo.
Peek inside the pack.
Yeah, I want this one. Always nice when you can make those trades and hold on to the Reborn effect from the Mummy. It means that it's just that much more difficult for Tom to deal with here. There is now Bow available though, and even Bow Coin on Leash. Is that ever worth committing to? He can't coin out high main, which is what in a perfect world he would like to do on turn 5.
I mean, he could.
Oh, it just gets wrecked.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a weird state for Tom here, where he just has so much stuff to do.
oh, so he's just relying on the fact that the old coin high main into high main is just too overpowered.
I guess so, yeah.
Because that used to be like game winning in mid range until back in the day.
Right.
No one recovered from that play.
Warriors were playing. Oh well. Some Warriors, namely Trump, was playing Tinkmaster in his Control Warriors just to counteract the Warriors.
some shamans.
The hunters.
Zilay was also playing Ting Mastering Quest Shaman right now.
Oh, really?
Well, I think he dabbled in it. I don't think he committed.
Oh, of course, because if you press the hero power, it always makes a 5/5 for the enemy first, and then it turns it into a 1/1.
There you go. And then when the only problem is when Shudderwalk comes out, things get a bit spicy.
It's like the most budget version of the Monty Hall problem.
Is
Do
it?
you press the hero power before you play the Tank Master or not? Kind of the equivalent. You should put quests in your deck just to mulligan to the right one. Oh, God.
Let's not, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's not.
I'm purely mentioning that to make fun. Here comes in the power of holding on to the weapons project. I imagine it's exactly what
It's just good, isn't it?
It's
You know,
insane.
it's a pretty good turn.
Yeah. This is why I'm a big fan of this in the deck. Like, I think you are justified in playing this combination at the moment, given that there's a decent amount of warriors knocking about that run Super Collider. I expected more rogues, which is why I would have liked this more, the inclusion of weapons project, but I think it's still just fine. Tom now thinking, well, High Main on 5 didn't work particularly well. High Main on 6 here also happens to look pretty horrendous.
I like this though. You've just seen Heresy, you've seen Weapons Project.
Yeah,
Get
okay.
that bow 1 million charges now. It's like a Captain America. Get that hunter a bow. And then it's just going to start stacking up with all these secrets because this bow is almost certainly safe. Oh wait, no, it is safe, right?
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no
sorry,
other
it's
weapons
one weapon. It's one weapons project. Yeah, so this bow's just safe now. Tom could keep this all game.
project. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Little bit of order hold. I think that was just wrong. Just to take more damage with the explosive trap going on the bone wraith.
I also believe so.
I mean, I am in no position to judge. I am the worst player. Seriously, playing around secrets, I get it
Full
wrong.
stop.
Literally
I am
every
the
time.
worst player.
I mean, that's arguable. But specifically with secrets, I mess it up every time, man.
I think Hunter Secrets, especially right now with Pressure Plate,
Really
basically
difficult to play
cover
around.
every base
Exactly.
of if you play a card, it could proc a trap.
Yeah.
If you make an attack, it could proc a trap. That's the game of Hearthstone. You play cards or you attack.
Unity. Precision.
Or if you're really good.
I think I say you can attack.
The best players never. Well, Ziliax does both, I
Imagine a
guess.
world, well, I can't, it's called Wild, where Cat Trick is also in the game alongside these secrets. Oh.
That would be insane. Catcher could be so good right now.
Oh, knocking about.
Insane. But this is the situation that Warrior dreams of a lot of the time, and we haven't been seeing all too much, surprisingly. I guess because Warrior's been up against some pretty miserable matchups of Quest Paladin and Quest Druid, but getting the Armadillo down, getting this taunt wall of the defenders is just so nice.
And Hunter does not really have a response. Not a good one anyway.
Not really,
Not
no.
to this. And the issue is Warrior is very good at if you have no response and you have to just play stuff, Warrior is very good at removing that stuff and still getting the attacks in.
I mean, there's good stuff that can be done here, like Zephyrus Black Knight is obviously a decent swing onto the board. I wonder if Tom is ever trying to bait FroStee into over-committing and then going Zephyrus plus Twisting Nether, but man, does that not feel good against a Warrior.
And you know what I'm going to... It's easy to say in certain situations, but I'm going to keep bringing it up because I've seen more than one today. Are we still, honestly, fully decided that Brewmaster's not good enough for Highlander decks? Because there are so many cards that would be pretty good to good to very good with Brewmaster in every single one of these decks. I feel like Zephyrus, obvious, you know, your Highlander cards, like for example in this, Zephyrus and Bran, of course, would be good with Brewmaster. But I also think there's other stuff that's just fine, even if it's just sometimes healing a minion.
Try it out, maybe it is.
Precision.
I would estimate it's one of the reasons why Brewmaster traditionally has not been a very good card in Hearthstone, apart from like specifically Quest Rogue was like where you had to do it to bounce the cards over and over again.
Paladin.
Right, exactly. It's just too slow. It's too
Right.
slow most of the time. You have to have a very, very specific reason as for why you go for it.
None shall.
And
Turned out pretty nice.
yeah, holding on to Zephyrus for a turn to get the Giga Black Knight hit is insane. Very, very strong.
Would you love it if like the Hearthstone devs started just releasing cards with names of things that people say, like pro players say? Like if they release a card that's a spell called Giga Nuts.
Yeah.
Like imagine that. You just legitimately be like, and he's got the
A
Giga
pile
Nuts.
of nuts.
Yeah.
Well, they're kind of close with Acorn Bearer. It is the
Yeah,
nuts.
Hey, we get in there.
Oh!
Oh, okay. Yeah, survive again. Impossible, but try. Well, we'll survive with the line.
No tomb can hold me.
FroStee making a somewhat desperate play here, considering how strong of a position he was in last turn. But I think it's very reasonable, because FroStee is using his biggest asset here, which is the fact that Tom's at 13 health. He can actually start to pressure Tom out of the game, or at the very least say, you know what, you're not playing that high main. That is way too slow.
Yeah, and most importantly, not only is FroStee pressuring Tom's health total, Tom is barely even scratched FroStee, so FroStee can play like this. I was going to say recklessly. This is not playing recklessly, but I mean aggressively, because he doesn't have to worry about his life. He doesn't have to worry about pressing armor up right now, because he's under no threat for at least 1 to 2 turns, and that's if things started going Tom's way. Like right now, FroStee's just playing minion, try and go for ace.
Pretty much.
With shield block as well, it means that you can cycle into maybe something a bit better. Omega Assembly, again, fantastic with mechs already on board to potentially get cards along the lines of Wargate, Zilliax, anything, Brilliant Nullifier, anything you can attach, which then becomes, instead of Rush with Boon, becomes Charge, which is why Tom has obviously tried to kill off and succeeded in removing the mechs from the board. He does not want to just die next turn, because it could happen.
And rightly so. This very clearly illustrates Tom's game plan, which is not one of aggression. I mean, right from the get-go, he was not going on a plan of aggression, only keeping the Hunter's Pack. Very clearly said value, late game overwhelming is what he's trying to go for. And this is in keeping with that, you know, using the kill command as a removal spell I like a lot here, because I think he realizes if he can survive until Zul'jin, he is, if not favored, in a decent spot. But that could be a pretty tall order with a pretty premium Omega Assembly there for FroStee.
Yeah, and going face again.
Oh,
Love
yes.
it.
Oh,
Go, 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 go. And again, if FroStee was pressured more, he might not feel comfortable making that swing, which then puts the 3-1 into the beast, which then reduces the damage. So the fact that Tom's decided to play value-based has reduced some of the normal interactions between these decks.
yeah.
Oh, lethal?
Is that just lethal?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just game.
It's already 6 damage, only needs to play twice. GG. FroStee takes a win. Control Warrior versus Hunter. Not something that I think is super common, especially in that way. It felt like the players swapped roles for that game. You know, FroStee playing aggressive and Tom playing slow.
Yeah.
But yeah, he made it work. So now he's evened it up 1-1. And you've got to say now that the Paladin's gonna come down to play, I think.
Yes, I think so.
Or at least I would queue it if it was me.
Yeah, yeah, I can agree with that. With you know, as you said, the Warrior being banned, and now it's up against just the Hunter and the Warlock left for Tom. I think those are interesting matchups because with the Paladin, the problem is that by playing out what is mainly just vanilla or neutral Murlocs on curve, that is generally weaker than what Zoo Warlock specifically will do.
Right.
And I would say Hunter as well, it's weaker than what Hunter can do. Given they have Zephyrus, they have all the secret synergy cards, they will generally come ahead. So it does come down to either getting a very, very strong Murloc start and getting nice value trades or going super aggressive, or getting the Prismatic Lens, where you just overwhelm the board early on, and neither of the decks has the removal to fight back.
Yeah, and my problem in general is FroStee could play Shaman, right? He's got Shaman on Paladin left.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
His Shaman, I feel like, at least in my experience, it gets dumpstered by aggro. Because, yes, I've had people say to me, yeah, but Mind Control Tech and Sandstorm Elemental, early game deals 1 damage to the board, and Mind Control Tech, if it's played into, steals 1 minion. By turn 6, when your quest starts getting active most of the time, 5 or 6-ish, one, you have to pay 2 mana to double proc the effect, and 2, the game's often late anyway. It's too late. The game is decided, and luckily, we get to see this maybe play out because it is going to be Tom on the Zoo Warlock and FroStee on the Shaman, and I would favor Tom in this from at least my experience with the Shaman deck.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective because the Zoo, it feels like generally it just does fairly powerful stuff, like not absurdly strong,
right?
But it's very consistent. This is the benefit of playing
Yes.
Zoo, is you play a lot of one-drops in your deck, so it is able to consistently get a strong early game play. But FroStee with his Shaman deck can get ridiculously powerful starts if he's finding the cards to be able to do so.
And that's it. And don't get me wrong, FroStee's build is, again, one of the 18,000 builds you can run of this deck. It has double Earth Shock, so there's some stuff versus, for example, Tom's 2X that he runs in the deck. But in general, he does run Brewmaster as well. Maybe FroStee just get on. He runs double Brewmaster in this deck and double Bog Slasher. It's because you can destroy control decks.
Yes.
Because you just forever bounce Life Drinkers and the Wasps as well, and just deal 6 damage to face every single turn. But let's see as we go into game number 3, the deciding game in the series, of just what happens. Because for me, if you're telling me to pick, I would pick the Zoo every single time. But there are certain cards that help. Mogu Flesh Shaper is definitely one of them, because one thing you can rely on your opponent doing is playing minions.
The keep of the Diseased Vulture there is something I find kind of surprising there for Tom. Like, it's obviously a very powerful card if you get it rolling, but going first, I don't only want to find a 1-drop. I really want to find Flame Imp 100% of the time. I don't think I like that. I want to see a more aggressive mulligan.
I find it very tough. One, Tom's just a god and just has 3 into 4 now.
Yeah.
But also, I was saying this yesterday, I feel like Vulture is the backbone of the deck. And to me, it's similar, not the same, but similar to keeping Thunderhead in Shaman, which a lot of players were doing.
I think it's quite different. I would put Thunderhead like...
I'm not on about in power level, but I'm about power level within the deck.
Okay.
So it feels like the card. I feel.
Okay. I feel like Thunderhead absolutely is the card in all aggro
Yes.
Shaman decks. I don't know if I necessarily agree with Diseased Vulture, because this deck is pretty much all minions, whereas aggro Shaman is not. It's a whole bunch of spells that you're rocking in there, usually with the Spirit of the Frog as well. So I think just going for a little bit more of an early aggressive curve would have made more sense. But, you know, to be fair to Tom here, it's very difficult for Shaman to actually remove this on turn 4.
And the thing for me, let's just live in a world where that didn't happen and Tom just played like a 1-drop and an egg.
Yeah.
The board still looks like a problem in that world, right? Even if the Vulture didn't summon a single minion this turn. Like, there's still an issue. And like I said, in terms of removal, this early in the game, he cannot kill that Vulture.
Well,
with no board.
I mean, if he'd got better lackeys, he would have been able to.
Oh, right, but if you're saying, the way my Vulture dies if my opponent gets, like, multiple good, like, perfect lackeys.
I don't think it's perfect lackeys. Like, it's kobolds, or it's goblin, or it's ethereal a lot of the time as well, or even just. I think Titanic Lackey was like the worst lackey to get there, and you got 2 of them.
Oh, right, but I'm just saying, you would still need to have something on the board most of the time for the Vulture to actually die.
And I guess I am being a little bit results-oriented there, because Tom obviously got no 1-drops, which is pretty miserable. Not even the bad ones like Crystallizer that you don't really want to play on 1 a lot of the time. And the reward here he's getting is off the charts.
Crystallizer, let's go.
Stupid value.
And this is what I mean. Obviously, it's exasperated, right, by the fact that he has double Vulture and they've lived, so on and so on. But Vulture, I feel, in this version of Zoo, does all the broken things the quickest as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like Tom's build a lot of the Warlock.
I agree. This is, from just the matches we've seen, feels like the beefiest and the most consistent one. Ooh.
This is just destruction.
Hey, Tickmaster. And now you see the drawback of Brewmaster, right? What we were talking about earlier. I was saying, Brewmaster's got some great value opportunity. Well, the value opportunity here is just it kills you faster.
Oh, yes.
And now...
So what are we looking at? Weaponized Waspo and then kill off the Vulture?
What to do?
And it's a funny one because, again, we're in an extreme situation, right? But if, say, Tom had 5 minions and they weren't all big health, but they were just average-sized health, whatever we decide that number is. It's probably more than 1, right? Well, this still looks quite bad for FroStee in that situation as well. You could argue that the board state would all change, obviously, but I'm saying in general, if a opponent gets a board early, I don't really know what Shaman's supposed to do to deal with it with no AoE in these deck builds, which is my worry with the deck.
Yeah, I agree. This is not the matchup you want to go for.
Yeah, I feel like you just lose to any aggro deck.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily quite that clear cut. Like Tom, I would say, still had a very strong hand, which is, I guess, again, maybe a reason why keeping the Vulture was just the way to go.
16 damage this turn without spells. Oh, there's Grim Rally. 16. What, 20? What, 22 damage?
Mucho Damahe. Yeah, I don't think FroStee's finding any way to come back in this. If he got Sandstorm Elemental, that's not enough to clear it up. A Mind Control tech, there's no perfect means he can steal.
And yeah, that's when I've had people literally say to me, oh yeah, but Mind Control tech. I'm like, what minion in the game are you going to steal that just defends, you know, an and not even this push, but just your average aggro push?
Don't worry, I'm not arguing with you.
It's crazy.
It's pretty miserable.
It's crazy. And Tom, boom, 4-0 in Grandmasters Season 2. And again, it was obviously a 2-1 victory, so it was closer. Yeah. But I think overall, again, Tom looked pretty comfortable in the series.
Yeah, I agree. This is why, you know, it's interesting that the opinion on the Battlecry Shaman here, you can have multiple opinions that I would say are both correct. Like whether you think some players who say it's good in the European region, maybe it is good if the meta is a little bit slower, less aggro decks knocking about. It makes sense to dominate these control decks, especially FroStee's slow build of the deck. But in the Asia-Pacific region, where we're seeing a fair few zoos knocking about and aggro rogues, maybe it's just not the way to go.
Exactly, and then especially Quest Shaman as a deck, there are so many cards you can slot in and out and in and out that dramatically change matchups because, again, a query about how it fares versus Priest, terribly. But there's 2 Earthshocks in this version, so better, you know, and because like almost you can play like any card in this deck, you can just tweak it however you want, which is definitely the appeal of the deck. Is just finding the one that works for the right situation. But Tom does go 4-0, very impressive run so far, and not only is it good he's gone 4-0, it's even better for him because no one else has, which means he is just going further and further away from everyone else, which is what you want to do. You want to just make that gap as big as possible, and it means you are increasingly more likely to just maybe by week 5 be locked for top 4, even if you get 4th. As long as you make it, although seedings are kind of a thing, as long as you make that top 4, that's all you need, and then you concentrate on the playoffs, which is going to be huge.
Yeah, and I hope we get to see Tom do well. After his pretty poor performance in Season 1, I think seeing former world champions make their way through to BlizzCon would be a great bit of extra spice thrown into the mix as well. Like any of Pavel, Tom, or Hunter Race at this point, all of whom, Firebat as well, all of whom could qualify through.